Let's move on to our second and final panel of the show here. We're pivoting from utility to another category of NFTs, music and film, and how NFTs can be used to drive engagement there. To help me out, I'm going to bring on Mark Elenowitz. He's the co-founder of Upstream. Mark's going to moderate this panel for us. So let's get Mark on right now. Mark, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Spencer. Thanks for having me.
I'm going to let you introduce the panelists, but before we do that, is it true you're also doing an airdrop for us, like after the panel?
We are. You're letting our secret out a little bit early, but at the end of this panel, we are going to be doing a free NFT drop to 50 lucky fans. That's going to give you $2,500 of access to your Benzinga summer conference in Las Vegas. So what we encourage everybody to do is go to the app stores now, download the Upstream app. You search it there. You're going to go through just a couple simple steps. Go ahead and install it. And at the end of this panel, we'll give you the code that will unlock the first 50 people to be able to get that $2,500 free pass.
And again, that's in the Upstream app. Boom. All right. Mark, I'll give you the floor here. Why don't you introduce who we got coming on right now?
Fantastic. So today's panel is about music and film and using NFTs to drive the future of fan engagement. So as you said, it's a little bit different than what we've heard before, but we're really looking about how fan engagement is going to be in the next horizon to integrate what we see in our daily lives through music and film and entertainment, and how to create a more immersive fan engagement experience that's going to eventually transition into the Web 3.0. So to give you a little background, I'm Mark Elenowitz. I am the co-founder of Upstream. We are a merge exchange market and the only regulated national securities exchange in the world powered by the blockchain. So not only do we do digital securities, but we also do NFTs, but in a secure and compliant manner. I'm also the president of Horizon Fintechs, which is the architect around the entire Upstream methodology and marketplace, and we power it. And really all this comes together because I've been a Wall Street banker for the last 30 years. I've been very active in the Jobs Act, specifically Title IV, which is known as Reg A+. I created the methodology for fans to be able to buy into opportunities and actually have them trade on the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. Upstream itself, as I mentioned, we're a fully regulated marketplace, but what we focus on are really NFTs to the masses. But we do it in a compliant manner that's compliant with the Bank Secrecy Act, the Patriot Act, and all the European regulations. And we create NFTs that are streamlined and allows everyday fans to have the opportunity to participate without having to do with the complex integrations of MetaMask and using cryptocurrency. There's no gas fees that are charged to our users. And really, as I said, it comes back down to regulation and giving the best and next generation investor protections. And you can learn more about that. And you'll actually be able to see it, as we said, by the NFT drop at the end that we're doing with Benzinga. So again, I encourage you, go to the Upstream apps, go to the store now and download the app and get ready, because that total value for those 50 is over 125,000. So today we have some very exciting industry trailblazers bringing what we consider the convergence of NFTs to music, film, and television. We have Joel Madden, who's the singer from Good Charlotte, and he's the founder of Veeps. We also have Gary Marella, who's an industry veteran, CEO and co-founder of Beatclub, and Aaron Gilbert, who's the chairman and CEO of BRON Media Corp. So why don't I just take a moment here? I'm going to allow each of the panelists to introduce themselves. We'll start with Joel, and then we'll follow through with Gary and Gilbert. Joel, you can say a few words.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good.
Good to be here. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I'm excited always to talk about the future of what I think is where will music really enter the NFT space, and how will it become something that everyone uses. And so I think we're at the beginning, and I think it's really great to be here with you, Mark, and it's great to be here with you, Aaron, and Gary, all guys I respect, and I think we're all having the same conversations, and I'm excited to talk about it.
Excellent.
Go ahead, Aaron. You're on mute, Aaron, I think. Aaron, you're on mute, buddy.
Yeah, Aaron, if you want to just hit that mute the mute
Oh
button.
man, I had such amazing things to say. Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here. Full candor, I'm a little bit of a newbie to this space. This is a learning curve for BRON. BRON's a company that my wife and I founded coming on 12 years ago, amazingly. Initially in the film space and grew into TV and gaming and animation and sales and venture investments and other things. And NFTs are really an exciting new opportunity for our company across the different units of our group. So big learning curve for us on how we're going to start implementing NFTs, and we are starting to do that now with Mark's help and his colleague Brian's help, and doing lots of good stuff with other panelists here as well. Which so happy to be here.
I'd say I'm a newbie as well. My partner Timblin and I got into the Web3 space about a year ago. We had a few drops. Definitely learning a lot as well from Mark and Brian on his side. Industry vet, as Mark said, I was on the label side for 15 plus years at Universal Music Group. I was at Live Nation, and Tim and I started Beatclub about 3 years ago. And, we're just dipping our toe into the Web3 space, which we'll talk about today a little bit, but as well, excited to be on the panel. Joel is one of the guys that I'm always going to for advice and insight on the Web3 space as well, and Mark as well. So pleasure to be on here with you guys.
These guys are being a little modest. They're quite experts now for everything they've been doing. In fact, you'll find out today that they truly understand this convergence that we're seeing. I want to take a few moment here just to give you a little background or set the stage for what we're going to be talking about. Clearly, this whole event today has all been about NFTs. I missed some of the earlier panels, so if I'm giving a little bit of a repetitive information, I apologize. But to give you an idea, the total volume across 14 NFT marketplaces rose from 85 million in 2020 to over 19.6 billion in 2021. And we have now seen big brands, athletes, exchanges, all these different aspects that are adding NFTs to the strategies, just like what BRON's going to talk about with their films and theatrical releases on how they're integrating it into their strategies. And what we're finding now is that it's finally starting to reach mainstream. It's not just the crypto experts, but everybody else is starting to talk about it, but they haven't quite grasped it. It hasn't reached the masses yet. The regular consumer doesn't understand what an NFT is, and certainly they don't understand how to be able to actually purchase them. And I think that really boils down to two main things, and that's price points and understanding the blockchain and knowing how to go through the hurdles to be able to purchase it. Not everyone can afford very expensive NFTs, but everyone can afford low-priced NFTs. And once they understand what it means, we're going to really be able to see that transition where we're going to see entertainment converge with Web 3.0. But one of the things that we've seen a lot, in fact, Tim and Gary are actively involved in the Bored Ape Yacht Club, is that their own NFT collection. That's what seems to be getting a lot of the media press. Those who understand it, we're seeing these, the average price of the Bored Ape is around $360,000. There's been some expensive ones recently with Justin Bieber buying one for, I think, 1.2 million. And they have over 635,000 Twitter followers and a Discord community, over 138,000 people. But however, if we really take a closer look at it and look at what the Bored Ape community is really doing, we only saw 177 traders last week. So that really tells us that there's an entire marketplace out there that just doesn't understand it yet. And while we see this excitement traditionally around these high price tags, it's the lower ones that we really are going to be looking for in more traditional media and entertainment. So the other thing that we're seeing, just to give a little background, because the other big thing that everyone talks about is OpenSea and everything that goes on there. But if you really look at it, there's just a mere 20% of the users' addresses on OpenSea. They account for over 80% of the secondary NFT sales. So while just 5% of those addresses, they accounted for over 80% of those sales. So it truly shows that this is a marketplace that's on the edge of exploding because the rest of the world really doesn't understand it. So there's over 80% of the population that still could get involved with this. And we're just starting to see the beginning of that digital merchandise and NFTs reaching our daily lives. So as we start to integrate, that's what we're going to be talking about today. In this panel, we'll explore how funding the new frontier with those at the forefront of the digital revolution. And we have a good distribution of it today between Joel and Gary and Aaron. And with that, I'm going to start off by asking Gary you some questions, if you don't mind.
No, not at all.
and we're going to go ahead and begin. Really what it comes down to, Gary, is you and what you've done with Tim and what you've been able to put together. We're starting to see a rise in the streaming and artists selling catalogs, music IP becoming a valuable asset. We're starting to see more and more of these individuals selling their catalogs to private equity, and how that's all coming together with the online beat marketplaces growing. How do you see this fit in, and what are you seeing as ways for creators to be able to make more money, or really to be able to take advantage of this new stream?
You know, Tim and I started Beatclub before the pandemic, when a lot of people were already making music at home. This number obviously increased drastically during COVID, when people had no choice but to make music in their home. Post-pandemic, I think the shift is here to stay, with millions of creators making music at home. It's so easy now for an artist or producer to get educational tutorials online, get their sounds, get their software plugins, get their digital audio workstation. And it's never been easier to buy a beat or an acapella online and finish their song at home and release it on their own. So that to me is the future of the business. And we've seen competitors in this space, their subscription numbers have doubled in the last 14 to 18 months. And that's because of the bedroom producers and the home artists that are just releasing music on their own.
I got a fun fact on that, though. One of the things that we found is that over 8 million musicians currently are on Spotify, and only 7,500 of them, or 0.09% of the group, actually make more than $100,000 per year. So do you think that the Web3 is really going to...
Yeah, I can add to that. I mean, there's 60,000 new songs a day being released on Spotify. That's 22 million songs a year from about 8 million artists. And when you put those stats there that you said 7,500 artists are only 7,500 artists are making more than 100K a year, I don't think that's going to change. I mean, it has to change on the streaming side, but I don't see that happening anytime in the near future. So the NFT component to this, to me, is great, because any independent artist globally can put an entire album in an NFT, a piece of art, merch, tickets, anything they want, set their own prices, and make the majority of the revenue.
There's actually a case study on this. Halik sold 4 songs for his new EP. Did this back in 2021, and he made $235,000, which was fantastic. For him to make that same amount of money on Spotify, he would have had to have 59 million streams. So I think it really shows the ability of what the power of the blockchain can be.
Yeah, I think you're going to see more artists doing this. I mean, Kanye's a good example. Last night, he streamed his concert for free on stemplayer.com. I think he's made already about $7 to $8 million with his stem player on his album, which I'm sure those numbers are going to skyrocket after last night. You're just going to see more and more artists trying to come up with new ways to make revenue here. And the NFT space is to me, an ideal place to do it.
Joel, you are an artist. You are the co-founder of Good Charlotte. You're also the founder of the live streaming platform Veeps, and that your mission was to inspire and enable artists and other performers to build a sustaining business. But as you've always said, it's always on their own terms. How do you see this? As somebody who actually experiences it directly, how do you see NFTs and digital goods supporting this vision that you guys have?
100%. I think that we're going to be using these, and we're going to be. I think it's about discovering. With Veeps, it's interesting. We look at like Spotify, and we look at and for people to understand like that Spotify is one line of revenue for you. There's your YouTube, there's your Apple, there's all the lines of revenue. So we look at all the at the real career of an artist that needs audience. So that's the power of Spotify as audience. It's the collected audience that's all and all the platforms that have audience. So with Veeps, we're building audience. We're building millions of live stream ticket buyers. And that's now why artists want to come to Veeps and stream shows from their tour, is we have a few million ticket buyers that want to see live streams versus it's not actually people who are choosing between a concert and a live stream. It's actually people who are interested in watching a live concert virtually versus where they were never going to a concert that night. So there is you do have to acknowledge audience when people say, I only make this much on Spotify. I agree with the idea that we should continue to improve what they pay artists, but we have to respect audience and collective audience. And so how do we bring the reality of that to Web3? Because also with Web3, what I don't love is selling people the moon that like, we're going to release our music on Web3 and you're going to buy an NFT and get a song. The artists that have big audiences can do that and absolutely give their fans something extremely special. And I think that's an incredible thing to be that the ones who can grasp it, like Timbaland grasped it. He understands what it means to hold something unique digitally and to get something special musically with it. The sky's the limit on what we can give fans experientially for musically. But then you have new fans, you have new artists trying to break. And that to me is the future that I'm always thinking about is how do we build audience in Web3 that understand Web3 that will actually change the lives of artists beyond selling an NFT. Because I think the future to me is we're holding everything digitally, so everything's an NFT. So there's going to be lots of different kinds of ways we interact with NFTs, whether it's our ticket to our show, which is absolutely going to be happening, and if it's a receipt, or if it's a whatever it is, we're going to be transacting in digital goods in the future completely. And so guys like us here are all in on that. And we're trying to figure out how do we build a real actual application to this in our real lives that are just what most people I found, because I've been a collector of NFTs for a long time, and the people that are all around me that don't quite care, I respect that because they're not necessarily collectors, right? For the cynical people, I'd say go on eBay, go on wherever, and look at all the categories of things you can collect and tell me that NFTs don't have a place across every single category to live and breathe in certainly in all places, entertainment, right? So what we're trying to do is for me, it's find ways that artists that are trying to make it can actually use NFTs and still build audience. Because right now, like you said, Mark, it's a small number of wallets that are transacting. It's a small number of people. It's going to grow 100%. But I think it's looking for ways to bring our average ticket buyer, the person that maybe is buying a Veeps show. My goal at Veeps is the person buying a ticket to a live stream. They're getting a great value. The shows are and the platform are the best. But can we give them more and then help them enter into holding NFTs in a way that they can understand and that they can grasp, and that it's a low barrier for entry. It's easy for them it's a part of their Veeps life. And so those are the things we're looking at building and solving. And I do think that we're not the only ones. I think that collectively, all these groups here, and certainly more out, are looking for ways to build into their customers getting the value of an NFT. So they're transacting on our platform just to watch a show, but now they're also getting the value of holding NFTs. That's what I want to build, and I think that's where the entire music and entertainment industry moves. It kind of migrates into NFTs. I think is over time we're helping our customers and our fans get more out of their experience. So that say they buy tickets to 5 live streams next year and all their tickets are NFTs. And it just so happens that one of those NFTs has a surprise utility to it from the artist. One of those NFTs becomes valuable because it's for whatever reason. So that's adding value to people's lives for their hard-earned money that they're spending on these music experiences. I think that's the future of how we build in the NFT. I also think the special drops, I'm not discrediting those at all. I think they only really work great for the artists that have a big audience.
I'm glad you mentioned this. I'm glad you mentioned this.
It's easy about a big audience.
It's easy to talk about Snoop and Kanye and some of these bigger artists, but for the up and coming artists, I agree. This is
and majority, like Gary, are up and coming, always working, survive. So there are also those working artists who could build groups of 2,000 token holders that are always transacting. There are definitely like really great use cases for the artists dropping the special NFTs. 100%. I think that's going to grow as it happens. So I'm not like by any means discrediting or saying that that's not important. It is. For me, I'm hyper focused on the mass group of artists who are trying to make it and fans who maybe don't understand what it means to hold a digital asset, a digital good. So those are the things I'm actively trying to like figure out.
And I think you nailed it on the head. I mean, it's this whole group of up and coming artists that over the years have really not gotten the benefit from the labels that they should have. Now is an opportunity for using the fan engagement in order to really put money back into these artists and create brand longevity that goes beyond that concert and or beyond that stream, and allow the fans to really connect and feel as part of that movement and supporting the artist. I think we're seeing that also with what's going on in traditional entertainment, moving away from music, but into what we're seeing in film and television and entertainment, whether it's scripted or unscripted or live television or animated series. Aaron, you guys at BRON, you've been embracing this. You've been studying it. It's something that you really see that there's a convergence. I mean, ultimately, I think the heart of BRON itself is your core is rooted in live action, and then these scripted, unscripted. What do you think that works with the new Web 3.0 and the NFT strategy, and how does that integrate with what you're doing in entertainment with BRON?
Yeah, well, thanks. I like a lot what Joel was just saying there, and I think a lot of what he was just talking to applies directly over to the film and television space as well, and both on the audience side, like the consumer side, and also separately on the with young filmmakers and others who are trying to find awareness and find an audience, not dissimilar to young music artists or producers that are looking for their own audience. I think like for BRON is a company that is sort of like 1 foot in the indie world and 1 foot in the studio world. We have certain projects we make that are bigger movies with major studios, and when you're working with a major studio, you have massive marketing initiatives around it, and there's budgets to sort of really get to grassroots and get to sort of larger, broader campaigns and so on. Whereas with the indie movies, you really need everything you can get. You want to build fan engagement as early as possible. You want to connect to your audience, your consumers as early as possible. You want to offer your consumers, offer your audience something unique, something new. So like for us on the NFT space, I had to be honest, I call it more digital merch is what I refer to it as more than anything. I actually don't say the letter is NFT that often, because I find a lot of people look at me sideways when I say it because they don't yet understand it. Yet digital merch, you can kind of get it, right? And I think people understand, like for us, I totally subscribe to what Joel said and your philosophy, Mark, about how you sort of helped Ron learn about really trying to reach that 90-95%, and that's really what we're trying to do with across the board, whether it's a digital animation or gaming project of ours or a scripted or non-scripted film or TV. How do we connect with our audience as early as possible? How do we sort of build opportunities? How do we give them ways to unlock new experiences? How do we give them exclusive options and so on? But more than anything, how do we build community, and how do we sort of ensure that within that community we have the ability to kind of learn from reactions, learn from feedback, and you build it over time. I look at it a little bit like forgive the analogy, but it's in like an insurance world, right? If you're an insurance salesman, your first year of business, you land 50 clients. The next year, you land 50 more, and you have the 50 from the year before, and so on and so on. That's why when you meet 30 guys who've been in insurance for 30 years, 20 years, what have you, they've got massive amounts of clients, and have an ongoing annuity of this money that comes to them every year. And in some ways, I look at the digital merch side, the NFT side of what we're doing, a little bit like that, because BRON is fortunate enough to be involved in a lot of different things. So how do we connect our audiences across different kinds of properties, whether that be a kid's property, more an adult skewed property for like a thriller or a drama or other, or whatever that might be? How do we start finding a way to sort of take all of our audiences and connect them all through into opportunities that can continue to grow that space for us? So for us, there's going to be a lot of trial and error. I think like what I would say is that over the next year, and we're doing all this in concert with you, Mark, and Brian, who your partner, and Gary as well, and lots of stuff, which is great. Like for us, you know, we have the opportunity here, because we're involved in so many different things, to try different things and to see what really works for our audience and where we sort of see the best benefit, both for our audience and for us. And if we can find that medium where it works great for us and we can connect and get the information we need and provide that kind of opportunity, and conversely, audiences find something exciting in the digital merch and new unique opportunities, that's a win-win. So for us, we're going to try all sorts of things in and around that.
And I think you hit it on the head there. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, as Beatclub and BRON merge on certain projects and we start to do music around BRON films and partner there, I think there's a lot there that we can do in the NFT space as well, or the digital merch space. So I agree with you, Aaron.
Yeah.
What I was going to say, guys, is it all comes down, though, ultimately, I mean, all three of you have the most important thing that you need to be conscious of, and that's your brand reputation. You built your success on who you are by delivering good quality product. Gary, you and Tim has put out so many exciting and fantastic records with all the people that he's produced. And obviously Joel and what you've been doing, and BRON with some of the recent success with the films that have come out in the theaters. Are there any things that you guys are concerned about as a celebrity or as a brand going into this world? I mean, we hear every day about regulation that I believe it's not a question of if, it's when. We're seeing hacks happening on OpenSea. We're hearing now with the bank infrastructure bill. You know, how do you protect yourselves, or is that something that's even of concern, or is at this point you wait till something happens, or do you think proactively ahead of it?
On behalf of Timbaland, it absolutely is our top concern. I mean, even just yesterday, I emailed Joel about a company that wanted to do an NFT series drop with Tim. And as we dug deeper into them, we realized they really haven't done any drops yet. They were just getting going, and they essentially wanted to use Tim's name and likeness to build their company up, which no harm, no foul in that. But at the same time, we want to be cognizant of Tim's brand and align with the right companies, you know, after we've done our due diligence, that can, I guess, be respectful and help keep, you know, Tim's brand at the level that we've gotten it to.
Yeah, I would echo that same thing. I think, you know, different from Tim or Joel or other, you know, established artists that are out there and have that. For us, when we're creating new properties, you know, like, it's a little different, right? Because we're trying to bring as much awareness around new properties that may have not been in the marketplace yet. So it's a bit of, for us, it's a little bit of a different issue that we have to contend with, you know, because we have to more so make sure that we can be authentic around how the tone of our movies, and make sure that we're not misrepresenting how our movies should be, you know, the content of our movies, and because it's all about content at the end of the day for all of us, and how do we get that content into the right hands. So a little less concerned as on the brand side, meaning on an artist perspective, but definitely very important for us to ensure the integrity of each of our properties. Yeah.
I think the same rules always apply. I definitely am not promoting. I want to bring fans in, and I want them to hold NFTs as value, as added value for what they're buying beyond the show, beyond the music. But certainly the amount of scams that happen on OpenSea, in Discord, and all the different places that scams can happen. And I tell people all the time, the amount of crime that's happening, if you look at it that way, it's probably unprecedented how much crime is happening with zero repercussions, because it's happening digitally in a space that no one understands. So ultimately, and certainly Gary, you can probably agree with me on this. I've been in the music business for 20 some years and have seen people come in with full pockets saying, I want to start a music company, and leaving completely empty handed because they're coming into a space with people who have been around a long time and can prey on and take advantage of people who have money to invest and don't know anything about the business. I look at the NFT space the same way, and I tell people coming in with money, don't just listen to the first person that's got here a year before you. It's not that long. We have a long way to go. Get in the space, live there, collect something you find you love, take your time, and then get to know the place before you start investing heavily. And right now there's a huge business in influencers, people who have just been here for a year or a year and a half max, making money from big companies that want to come in and find their way. I'm not hating on that either. There's definitely great people who have integrity doing it, but there's also people who don't have integrity doing it as well. So like any space, you have to do your research, you have to take your time, and I think be practical when you move and measured. And I think you can have a lot of success here. You can do really cool things with really cool people. I've made so many great friends in the space. But we all know it's a wild space right now, and it's a wild time, and we will look back on this and we'll remember it. But I think safety first for me always, and I'm definitely not the guy telling people to jump in, and I'm always telling people, like, come in and get to know it. Take your time as a fan, as a collector, as an investor. Take your time. It's going to be here, and there's going to, like you said, Mark, there's stuff coming. I think that most collectors don't even think about, most people in the space, most founders aren't thinking about the government of it all. And the amount of fraud that happens is a major problem. And I do believe they're going to solve it. And I think that it's interesting to me how many crimes have been committed in fraud in this space, and it kind of goes largely unchecked for now. Because it is a space that's hard to understand for most people, and they haven't wrapped their heads around it. But I do believe that it's going to work itself out.
I think this is a time for your shameless plug, Mark. I think I can speak on that.
No, I wasn't going to go there, but I will give that.
No, but I could say probably on behalf of Aaron and myself, as you've taught both of us this last 6 to 7 months, and opened at least my eyes and probably Aaron's eyes on the amount of fraud and all the other platforms out there that, as you say, not if, it's when they're going to run into regulatory issues. I think you guys have really
thank you, Gary,
been leading the charge in that space to really be the last man standing when this all blows up.
Yeah, agreed. And agreed with everything. It was good to hear what how well Joel articulated that, because it's something that I think is super important. Whenever there's anything new, people will find a way to manipulate it to their own for their own evil means, But anyway, listen, I think it's like anything else. That any new space like this, there's going to be governance that are going to start to come through, new ways of sort of finding access to those people online that are creating these problems for so many that Joel is talking to, which he's right. But again, I think that's, as Gary said, that's where a lot of our comfort comes from in working with you, Mark, and your colleague Brian, just about how it is a regulated platform, and how there are certain things on the financial side we don't ever have to worry about, and that's super important for us. It's making us move very quickly in this space.
Yep.
I appreciate that, guys. I mean, just to give the audience a little bit of understanding of what we're talking about it's not a question of if, it's a when from a regulatory standpoint. When you're dealing with individual investors, when you're dealing with the public, investor protection is key. And unfortunately, regulation hasn't caught up with it, but it's coming because so many people are starting to get harmed, where it's important that you transact in a safe, secure environment where you know who your customer is. And this is why I was talking about from the brand perspective, because as a brand, if you can't stand before any government regulation or your bank and be able to say where the source of funds are, who are you transacting with, who is the buyer, Is this something that's just innocent where it's a young kid trading and he's a true fan, or is it something much more nefarious like a money launderer, or even worse, a sanctions list country? But all of that aside, I think Joel, you hit it on the head there. This is a market, and I look at it what we saw with crowdfunding on Wall Street. People are becoming experts because they said so on Discord, or they used to say they're experts because they said so on LinkedIn, but they've never done a deal in their life. And even if they've done a deal, it's only a year old. You really need to surround yourself with experts that understand securities law. And I'm going to turn it over to the audience for some questions in a moment. But what I'd like to really harp and push out to anybody that's listening that is a brand that's looking to get into it, and even as a consumer, be careful what is a utility and what is a security. There are so many NFTs that are walking the line. If they're paying royalties on music, just because others are doing it doesn't mean it's right. Ignorance is not an excuse. So it's one of these things, as this evolves, that's going to be the focus. In the US, securities have to be registered or exempt. And right now the blockchain really isn't tackling that. So careful what you wish for, but at the same time, there's a great way to do it.
It's crazy how much you see as someone who knows some of the rules, how you see businesses behaving in the space is the biggest thing that I say. It's why I'm not running around investing in everything. But everything from holding a raffle to even just the way they behave against, when you look at founders who are online talking badly about other projects. Business in the business world, we can't do that. In fact, we can't do that at all, actually, because legally those businesses are protected, and there are rules of engagement with competitors that you have to follow in real life that I see on Web3. There's none of the rules apply, and I look at all these different places and not just what you're trading. I mean, when you try to tell people, Amazon, eBay, all the big marketplaces you go to buy things have fraud protection for a reason. They have things in place to protect customers for a reason, and it's not just because they care about their customers. It's also they have to, and so that's it. Whether it's a project, a platform, I would encourage founders to get to know the rules and the laws and apply those to their business from the get, because I do think like Mark, you've been saying it, and before this panel, and we're all believers in the idea that that the regulations coming and the things are coming to protect people so that they can transact safely, and there are some rules. What we've seen over the last 2 years is anything goes, and it's definitely, I think, going to end soon.
Mark, I know you want to do questions, but really quick to add to what Joel's saying, on the Beatclub side, we're approaching the Web3 space carefully. Our platform isn't fully live yet until May this year. We know who our customer is, but we don't yet know how many of them are Web3 savvy enough for us to offer a membership token as the first entry point into Beatclub. It's a little risky to alienate the general public. The last thing I want to do is tell a young producer who's excited to join Beatclub that he or she has to get a MetaMask wallet to get their annual subscription. So what we've decided to do is just offer an annual subscription model in the coming weeks. Users swipe their credit card to pay, and included in that annual bundle, they get a Beatclub NFT. If they're not Web3 savvy, they don't have to do anything. If they are, we'll add utility to that with our second drop and take that approach. But it's a good point, Joel, because we've had to make that transition internally at Beatclub.
So before I do want to just give everybody an opportunity, because we're going to take some questions here. Spencer has a few, I think, for us that he's going to jump in on. But the plugs, if you want to learn more about Veeps, go to Veeps. Beatclub, as Gary just said, is going to be launching shortly. You can go to beatclub.com. And then for BRON, go to bronstudios.com. You can see some of their upcoming content and their existing content. And they've made some really exciting movies that have hit the mainstream recently. And all of this together will all be working with Upstream, which I encourage you to go to upstream.exchange. And if you haven't already downloaded the app, please do, because at the end of this, as I said, we're giving away $125,000 of value. Those tickets are sought after. They're $2,500 a piece, and Benzinga has offered them as NFTs to everybody here today, but it's only the first 50. So with that, Spencer, I'll turn it over to you to see if we have any questions.
Yeah. Just this is a question for the room, but as it pertains to NFTs, what keeps you up at night? What are you thinking about when you're good or bad?
I think what keeps me up at night right now is the entry point into the Web3 space for Beatclub as a company, and not alienating, like I said, the general public and the users that want to have the simplicity of just paying for an annual subscription. But I also don't want to alienate the Web3 folks that are collectors, like the Joel Maddens of the world. So that's the thing that keeps me up at night. I'm not as big as of a collector as guys like Joel and Timbaland and some of those guys are yet.
I can answer that. What keeps me up at night, what keeps Bron up at night, honestly, is that we have a lot of different initiatives with this digital merch, with these NFTs, and really, we build in budgets inside all of our IP which is a new thing for us, that we're now for the first time ever allocating money inside all of our project budgets to make sure that we have money allocated to properly build and produce, the NFTs. So what keeps me up at night is really just making sure that we're going to continue to offer unique experiences that are not just feeling like they're money grabs, because it's not. It's really about fan engagement. That's why some of the lower priced NFTs are really the strategy that we're taking here. And I think just being authentic within that. I think anybody in the gaming industry or other areas of media are really wise to sort of, when people are marketing to them purely for commerce. And I don't, and for on our perspective, it's really not purely for commerce. It's really, obviously, yes, it's great that we can generate some revenue, but more importantly, it's built, like I mentioned earlier on, it's building that community and building the audiences and building branding around our properties, that marketing side of it. So what keeps me up at night and with our team is really figuring out how best to do that across, literally 4 or 5 dozen properties a year, which is a lot.
And before Joel talks, if you guys don't know Bron, Aaron, I think what you guys have built the last 10 years is just one of the most iconic, dopest film studios. I mean, you're talking about a company that's done like Judas and the Messiah. I mean, some iconic films. So I had to give that shameless plug to you because you mentioned before it wasn't so much about brand, but I think it even is for a company like Bron and what you guys have built.
Thank you.
Sorry, Joel. I know you were going to pop in.
Oh, you know what? I love standing next to both your brands, Aaron and Gary. I think you guys have businesses that have tons of integrity, and that's always what I care about, is that we continue to build at our own pace. We've been building our businesses for 10 years now, and making a pivot from going from touring and making records to now building real meaningful businesses that we think are special and important in the in music. And now, as I lead all of our kind of endeavors into Web3 over the last 2 years, been very slow, very kind of research and development type stuff, because I have seen, like, the thing that keeps me up is leading all these fans into a space where they're not protected and where they don't understand the dangers of what's out there, because these are this is their hard-earned money. We've always seen it this way, from when they were buying our concert ticket or our t-shirt, or now as the CEO of a virtual company where people are buying virtual tickets. They're protected there. They're getting what they're paying for, or they're getting their money back. And that's how I feel fans should be treated. If you're not happy, I'll give you your money back. And that's something that I care deeply about, is people's hard-earned money going into something, and they're either getting a value of a novel experience that they felt was worth it, or they're holding something that will at least hold its value or go up. And so if they buy a toy or a t-shirt, you want to provide something that's limited and special and quality. And in the digital goods, that's how I feel about NFTs. And majority in the space, I don't think that's the case, but I think there are really incredible and special projects out there and people out there, tons I could name, that do represent that in the space. So it's what I love about the space. So for me, it's how do we lead in tens of millions of fans
And
into
protect
a
them.
place where they'll be protected.
Well said. Well said.
Well said.
Well, guys, I think we're out of time. Unfortunately, I want to thank all of you for participating today. It was really informative, and I would encourage the audience, if you guys have questions or want to follow up separately, I'm sure there's a way that you can reach out through Benzinga or through some of the chats after this. We also encourage everybody to come over to the Discord, to the Upstream Discord, where you'll be able to find more information and be able to communicate. And at this point, as I mentioned, if you had downloaded the app, there's an opportunity. There's only 50 of them. We expect they'll probably go fairly quickly. But the code that you want to enter is ZING, Z-I-N-G. And for the first 50 people, that will get you a $2,500 ticket for the upcoming Benzinga event in Las Vegas this summer. And with that, we appreciate everybody's time today and look forward to seeing this exciting new area continue to develop and the convergence between traditional media and Web 3.0.
Thanks, Mark.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody.
I'll see you,
Thanks,
Joel. Bye, Spencer.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone. That was fantastic stuff. Thanks again, Mark Elenowitz and Aaron Gilbert, Gary Marella, and Joel Madden.